Well, they're done. This will be the beginning of the video, and then I'll go through pretty much everything that I did to get it done. This is a Colt model, 1911, or government model, chambered in 10mm Delta Elite, which I'll bring up again later. I think they turned out really well. This is my second attempt. These are my first attempts, which I also like a lot. I think they turned out good. I am not a gunsmith. I'm not a carpenter. I'm a piss poor mechanic, and I was a pretty good auto body painter. So wear your safety glasses. Don't smoke around highly flammable stuff. Keep your fingers out of the saw, and don't shoot your eye out. Obviously this isn't going to hurt anybody unless I drop it on myself or cut myself with it. I think that's about it. So I hope you have the patience to watch it all the way through. I make a couple pretty decent mistakes that I think are important. So there we go. Okay, round 5. I recently purchased this pistol. This is a Colt 1911, chambered in 10mm Delta Elite. It is a standard Colt government model size grip. The pistol originally came with black plastic GI grips. Oh, it's wrong side. That they were black plastic. They looked like a GI, except they had a medallion here in the middle with a red triangle and a black background that signified that this was a Delta Elite. The previous owner of this pistol had these grips made for it. I'm not particularly fond of them. I'm just not particularly fond of them. I have a pretty decent wood shop here. I've made grips for my revolvers, and I figured it would be a great experiment to make grips for my new 1911 government. I also have another 1911 Commander. It has rubber Packmeyer grips, which are starting to become sticky. So this project is going to be making several different types of grip plates for 1911 government size. I started out by tracing the original grips on cardboard paper. I made them fit to my liking. Yeah, that's loose. That's on my list of things to fix. So I made these first. I then transferred this to wood. This is ebony wood that I purchased at Woodcraft. It was like 20 bucks for a piece. There's a piece missing. It's about twice as long as this. So I transferred this onto here. I'm going to cut that. I cut that out on the bandsaw. My end goal for this whole project is to use this black palm wood to make grips. I've never seen black palm grips on anything. It could be because it splinters and it's very difficult to work with, which that doesn't bother me a whole lot. I have plenty of time. I'll figure out how to make it work. I made a set of walnut grips for this pistol already. I like them. They don't fit as perfectly as I would like them to. I'm not a gunsmith. I'm not a woodworker. I'm a body man and a mechanic. But I think they turned out pretty nice for a first attempt. I'm not really fond of the way that the screws sit on this side, but that was a mistake. That was my mistake. So to make these grips, I started out with a piece of rough 4x4 rough cut black walnut. I milled it down to something dimensional size wise, and nice and clean. I then ripped this piece into these two pieces. I accidentally created a bookmark or a book match. There it is. So I've been kind of trying to save this hunk. I originally made this side wrong, and I'm going to show that I'll show what I did wrong there and why that happened. Clearly, it was completely 100% my fault. The next set of grips I'm going to make, I'm not going to use the ebony because my Delta Elite medallions have not come yet, and I don't want to start anything with this until I get the Delta Elite medallions. So I'm going to use this. I think this is like tiger wood. I think. I'm not sure what it is. I bought a grab box full of wood from Woodcraft last year. It was exotic hardwoods. This stuff's pretty hard, and it's heavy. So I'm assuming that it's going to make nice pistol grips. I like the way the grain is, and then when I put these pieces are kind of large, so I can put these any way I want. So like if I wanted to mount it like that, so the grain would go that way and create like I don't know. We'll figure it out. So that's that. I'll show you how I screwed up the other piece and then how I'm going to fix that too. Okay, I've transferred my pattern, which I showed in the other piece, or the other clip, to my pieces of wood. Normally I wouldn't use a Sharpie to do this with, but for video purposes and the way this wood is, the pencil isn't really going to show up all that great. These pieces are way too thick for grips, so I'm going to have to sand them down a good bit. So I'm hoping that I can sand the Sharpie out. Sharpie is very insidious when it comes to staying where it doesn't belong. It absorbs into the wood. It doesn't wash off. There's a reason it's called permanent marker. Under normal circumstances, I would probably make these two long straight cuts on my table saw, but because of this grain pattern that's running through the wood, I'm offset, and I don't feel safe, or I just don't think it would be practical to do it on the table saw at all. And these pieces are a little small, and I like my fingers, so I'm going to use the bandsaw here to cut these out. Whoops, got a little tight on the line on that one. I might actually use these for my Colt Commander and not the Delta Elite. The Commander I have, this is straight across the top. It's not offset or inset for the safety spring slide stop retainer spring thing. I'm afraid of the bandsaw too, but anything that'll cut steaks will cut your finger pretty damn quick. I should probably have this guard down further, but for photographic purposes I thought I'd leave it up. I should probably mention that if you're allergic to anything, Whenever you're working with exotic hardwoods, you should probably wear a dust mask. I don't. That's my own stupidity. So now we have the 2 blanks cut out. Whoa, I don't want to cut my finger off. So my 2 blanks are cut out, and then I'm going to show you the epiphany that I had with the other pieces. All right, try this again. Okay, so I'm back here. We're back at the my perfectly clean workbench here. So when I made the other piece, when I made my other grips, I made a vital error when doing so. I made this grip way too small, and what happened was, it's worthless because it doesn't fit. That was completely my fault. I jumped the gun, no pun intended, and I just started sanding. I didn't bother marking the back side. I just kind of lost track of what I was doing. The other thing I screwed up with this piece was I had a considerable amount of tear out when I drilled this hole. I used a Forstner bit on the other holes. I figured, oh, what the hell, I'll just run a drill bit through, and I screwed it up pretty bad. So this is, that's kindling. The other thing I did wrong was I glued these blocks of wood directly to the backside of the grip scale, whatever you want to call it, grip panel, and it made it very difficult to remove. So I learned from that mistake, and what I did was I applied a high quality masking tape to the backside of the piece. I transferred the pattern as it will appear. So this is the back, that's the front, on here. And I marked it with the Sharpie so I know this is the minimum, absolute minimum distance that I can sand to without causing any problems. And I can see it very clearly on the green masking tape. I'm from the body shop business, that's my trade. So I use this Scotch 2033. I don't know where else to get it other than auto body supply shops. This is a really, really good masking tape. I'm a masking tape diva. This blue stuff, made by 3M, I'm just not a huge fan of it. It doesn't tear right. It doesn't stick very well. I mean, it's great for house painters. It doesn't work very well for car painters. And it doesn't protect anything very well. So that's both of these. I did it to both of them. Now, I already have hot glue on here, so I'm just going to heat it up real quick. Yes, this heat gun is very hot. Very hot. It's a snap-on heat gun I bought years ago because I lost my other snap-on heat gun, but I didn't actually lose it. It was just in this pile of shit in my garage. Now, yeah, if you're ever using a heat gun, especially a good one, this one has it cool. You want to cool it off before you just turn it off, because if you don't, you can damage the coils inside when you inevitably drop it while it's hot. So these are now glued onto here. Pretty good. I think they'll work just for what I need to do. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a marker. I'm going to use a marker because I have to take probably almost half of this material off of here before I even bother trying to make any kind of shape out of these. These are way too thick. The original piece of wood was too small, in my opinion, too small to run through my planer. I suck at using a hand planer, plus sometimes these exotic hardwoods don't like to be hand planed, at least not with my cheap old dull hand plane. So we'll, I got a tool for that, and we'll do it later. Okay, so what I did was I made another critical error, but it's okay. I worked around it. I used my calipers here to just use it as a comparator to get a relative thickness of the material. I then transferred that to my scribe, like that. I should have done this before I glued these blocks of wood on. Ironically enough, the material, it's almost about 50%. You can't see it. This black line here, what I put on with the marker, is actually, if you do it this way, it lines up pretty good. It's almost, I have to remove almost half of this material. So I then just used the magic marker to mark my final thickness, or don't go any thinner would probably be the correct term there. Don't go any thinner than that. So now I'm going to go over to the belt sander. Go do that. I have a piece of like 50 grade or 50 grit sandpaper on my junky, barely functional Homier. It's not even Harbor Freight belt sander here. One of these days I'll buy a new one, but right now this works just fine for what I need it for. I do a lot of belt sanding, but like I said, I'm a little cheap. You know, this one was like $49 and it hasn't burned up or broke yet, so I figured I'll just keep using it. I do have a vacuum hooked up to this, and it's going to get really noisy, so I'm only going to do a little bit of the sanding, shaping, and then I'll show the finished product. Wood is very hard. I'm finding that out, which is a good thing, but it's going to take forever to get this to the proper thickness. Maybe I should have attempted to plane it down a little bit. Well, I've got my thickness very close to where I want it to be. I got a little bit nervous, so what I did was I went and grabbed my calipers again, and I remeasured the original grips that were on the pistol. I added probably 20 thousandths, 30 thousandths, or 20 or 30, I don't know, I forget how to read this damn thing. Yeah, thousandths. So I added probably 20 or 30 thousandths to the thickness. I'm right at the thickness that I want, and I'm pretty close to evenly thick all around. So from this point forward, everything I'm doing to them is going to be shaping them to make them fit the profile that I want. I'm going to do a little bit more with this heavy paper, but this heavy paper is very aggressive, and it's doing two things. It's tearing the wood a lot, which I don't want to happen, because then it's just more finishing later, and it takes off way too much, way too fast. So you can easily get yourself in trouble with too much sandpaper, because you have to remember, for everything that you take off, you have to leave enough to remove the scratches that were put in by the paper before it. So you always got to keep that in mind. That's with any sanding project. It was very important in the auto body industry. You never sanded thinner than the next grade of paper. So we're gonna just do a quick shape here. Sorry, I gotta turn the vacuum on. I'm pretty close to that line. That's it. I'm going to take that corner off. That's the relief for the mainspring. I figured I'd just take a little bit of that off. This is the edge that got me in trouble the last time, so I'm going to stay away from that one. So I think that's going to be all for this. I'm going to switch to, this is 80 grade, or 80 grit, I think. Yeah, probably 80. And then do some more shaping using the 80 as opposed to using this really heavy 50. Well, I've got these shaped pretty nicely for me. I'm relatively happy with the basic shape of them. This is the 80. I'm going to do one little thing on these, and I did it on the last batch, and I kind of screwed it up. I like they're kind of book matched. They're not perfectly booked, but close enough for me. That green pattern right there is what I wanted, and I got it. So what I'm going to do is, using the 80, I'm just going to try to put a chamfer, bang, right here on this. Now the other grips that I made, I actually drew that chamfer up too far, and what happened was it interfered with my ability to countersink the grip screws, and that really bothered me. The other thing, I think I've left these considerably thicker than the last batch, the last ones that I made, because of the countersinking of the grip screws. I'd like the grip screws to fit flat against the surface here. If not flat, even countersunk a little bit. I ordered some new grip screws because I'm not a big fan of the ones that come with the gun, because they're straight slotted screws, and I'm a fancy man and I like fancy hardware. So they look pretty decent, and we're just gonna, I'm real quick, just whack it. Yep, that's pretty much what I wanted. See if I can recreate that. Just to ease that edge a little bit. Yeah, I went a little too far on this one. So that's what got me in trouble last time. I think I'm better do the rest by hand, so I can ease that in a little bit. Ease that in a little bit more before I sand my fingers. So I'm going to switch this out with an even finer grade. This is 120, I think, and that'll give them a nice finish that I can start working on the rest of them. Well, I've got these down. I hit them with the 120 grit paper. My chamfer down here at the bottom isn't turning out all that great. I'm going to have to finish that by hand, I think. to get it so it's a little bit less offensive to me. The other thing I need to do is cut the relief for this mainspring, for the mainspring pin, and I'm probably going to have to, I know I'm going to have to cut this relief in here for the grip safety. That's another thing. When I take these off, I'm going to have to start fitting them by hand and cut some of these things out with a Dremel. What I am going to do before I do that, and I made this mistake the last time, was I took these off. I took these off too soon, and doing that, it made it very difficult to work with them because they're kind of small, and I wanted to, so I'm going to leave these on and then reset, and then just do a quick hand sand on these, kind of try to finish this off a little bit nicer with a block, and then cut this with my Dremel so I can kind of get it to match a little bit closer. They're not quite matching, and that kind of offends me a little bit. So I'm gonna do it that way. This wood's really hard. It's the cutters that I'm using really don't like to cut it, so I'm going to have to maybe modify what cutting tool I use to do this with. It's really burning the wood, and these are brand new tools. I mean, these things are brand new, just out of the package. So, like I said, it's burning it pretty good. I think I'm maybe taking too much at one time, so I switched over to this round nose, which is going to cause problems, I know, but I have one other tool which is a little bit, has a coarser cut to it that might work better, but I'm going to try this first. Yeah, that worked a lot better. I turned the speed down a little tiny bit too. I'm going to go fit them. I got a little splintering here. I think it'll be fine. Yeah, it was the tool speed. I had the tool way too fast. So now I'm just dressing this a little bit. It fits pretty good. The next step is going to be to actually finish drill these holes here. See how much nicer it cuts at a slower speed. The other thing I need to do is I'm going to have to put the safety in. After I get these to mount up flush against the frame, I need to drill these out a little bit more. When I get this to fit flush up against the frame of the pistol, then I'll need to install the grip or the thumb safety to make sure it clears. I should have probably turned this around. Oh, you know what, I can. Hey, look at that. Yeah, good enough. I think that'll work. If not, I can always revisit it. This tool is pretty easy to use. So, I kind of made a little bit of a corporate decision. I already started on the other piece, but I'm going to do it on this one too. This is not, this is never going to turn out the way I want it to without building a jig. So I'm just going to use sandpaper and a sanding block, and I'm going to knock this ridge off of here so it's not quite as bad. So this is just 180 grit sandpaper. It's Velcro stuff that I got years ago. I think it's like Rhino brand or something like that. I had a ton of it. It works pretty good for wood. It doesn't work real great for auto body stuff, so that's why I have a ton of it. I got a good deal on it. Some guy sold it to me on the phone. Never buy anything over the phone. I'm sure people have excellent success with it. My personal opinion is it isn't that great. It's on, is it Rhino brand? Yeah, Rhino brand. I guess I'm an elitist. I use expensive stuff. I like 3M sandpaper. So I'm just going to ease that edge. Ease this edge. And then, just because I still have it chucked up in the vise here, I'm just going to whack it real quick with this piece of 220, which I just had sitting here. This is actually wet-dry paper. It should be used with water. You can use it dry, but I like to use water. You can't use water on wood. Well, you can, but it doesn't. Not for what I want to do. Once again, something else I got from the body shop. I just want to get them a little bit finer, cleaned up before I mark and drill the holes. Because then I'm going to have to fit it to the pistol that way. So I got that one, got this one. I'm going to kind of hold this one up next to it. You can see this is way different. I think I need a new sanding drum. Now, I normally would say you can't see both sides at the same time, but guns you actually kind of can. It's one of those rare things where, yeah, you actually can see both sides at the same time. And they aren't always the same. Even from the factory, they'll have little tiny variations and stuff. I don't have a CNC machine. I don't have a computer to do all that stuff. And if I did, I probably wouldn't have the time, or, well, I wouldn't have the patience to learn how to jig this up in a CNC machine and cut all the stuff at one time and make it all perfect and nice and pretty. Now, I'm just going to do it by eye. I do most things by eye. I found that it works, from time to time. I'm not, this is an art project. This isn't a nuclear reactor. This is making grips for a pistol. I'm not actually making a pistol. I don't need to be accurate down to 1/1000th of an inch. I did learn from my other grips that I made that I probably should do it in the drill press, which I might actually do. I think I might figure out a way to jig these up in a drill press to make sure that the holes are square and straight when they go in. I used a hand drill last time and I had less than stellar results. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off. I'm going to make them smaller. So they'll fit in the drill press vise. and then I can very carefully use the Forstner bit to drill them in, I think. Well, it seems that this wood had some flaw in it. Let me see. Doesn't want to focus. Yeah, it doesn't want to focus. Let's do it this way. You can't quite see it. There's a crack in it. I've got so much work in these already. I should probably throw them away, but I want to. I can't reiterate. These are all practice. I think what I'm going to do is, I don't think what I'm going to do. What I know what I'm going to do is, I have this real thin CA glue that will absolutely go into this crack and stabilize the crack. So I'm hoping that that works. The big problem with this crack, other than it's a crack in a pistol grip, which is under a lot of stress, is that so this is the right side. What is it with me in this right side? Is that the crack is very close to where the screw goes. So the crack is right here, and then I've got to put the screw holes in right around here. Interestingly enough, I don't know why, but this grip this time is really big. So I'm going to have to probably just like dry fit these against the pistol first to see where I screwed up. Shockingly, it looks like they're not as screwed up as I think they are, other than the right side and the left side might actually be a different size. So that's another thing I can do is I'll just clamp these together real quick, and I'll make this match perfectly. I have another vise with soft jaws. I'm not going to move the camera. I'm well aware that this isn't going to show up on the camera because I have a crappy camera, but I applied the super thin CA glue to the back side of this. I had it like this, and I dropped it. I'm going to glue my fingers to this. I'm sure it's not dry yet. So I put a couple drops of the CA glue in there, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do, which, like I said, it's not going to show up on camera, but what it did do is it came through all the way. And I'm hoping that will stabilize the crack enough so I can get all the holes drilled, and then put another coat. Once I get the holes drilled, I'll put another coat of CA on it. The nice thing is, I'm going to put this one away before I glue it to myself, is that the grips, as they are, do seem to fit relatively nicely. Let's see here. I'm going to have to cut a relief. I glued my hand to the vise. Awesome. I am going to have to do some hand fitting here. So there's the spring housing for the safety needs to be cleared out. I want these grips to come above this safety, but not interfere with the slide in any way. So I'm going to have to cut a little notch in the back side of this using my Dremel. Before I do that, I am going to reapply. Tape to the back. I'm going to retrace my templates and then drill the holes. I learned from the glue's funny. I learned from my last experience making grips, the first set of walnut ones, that these holes need to. These obviously it's critical, but it's even more critical than I thought it was. These holes need to be perfectly drilled or else you run into all kinds of weird problems. Well, I'm pretty happy with this. So I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I did exactly what I said I wasn't going to do, which is jig this whole thing up in a vise again and reattach these. So what I did was I just put these on. I drilled them. I used the Forstner bit, a 1/4-inch Forstner bit, to get I drilled a 16th inch pilot hole first. Then I used a 1/4-inch Forstner bit on back side and the front side, because I am going to have to drill these out bigger to accommodate the actual bushings themselves, the pins themselves. There's like a little shoulder on this right here. If it shows up, yeah, it kind of shows up on camera. There's a little shoulder there, so that I have to take that into consideration when I'm drilling the holes. But for initial fit purposes, so I'm pretty happy with that fit. It fits pretty nice along the back side here. The bottom I'm not worried about, because I'll just bolt them on, take it over to the sander, and just sand the bottom flush. Yeah, so that I'll just whack that off on the sander. No big deal. So now the next step is I need to cut a relief in here to accommodate that. Now, the last time I did it by hand, just sitting here fumbling with the Dremel tool, and I ended up damaging this piece. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to wise up. I'm going to put it in my soft-jawed vise and cut it that way. Well, here we are. I spared you the hand fitting of these grips. It took me a little while, not a long time, maybe an hour or so, to do a little bit of final fitting. I used a rosebud here to countersink the holes on both sides. That was how I cured the problem with the clearing this bushing. I also cut a relief in here for the safety spring retainer, and I also had to cut a small relief for the safety itself, which while it does clear, I'm getting a new safety, which actually I may end up having to revisit this, because the new safety I'm buying is an extended safety release. So this is the factory safety, which is kind of small. The one I ordered is a little bit bigger, so I can catch it, or so I can, it was just, I wanted it. So you can see there's a cut of relief in it, just because they fit very nice. I'm very happy with the way they turned out. This is my second set of grips. I also cut a relief in this side for the mag release. The slide clears. They fit nice in my hand. They are wider than the ones that came on it. Actually, they're considerably wider than the ones that came on it. Just a quick comparison here. You can see these are chamfered a little bit more rounded in. This has got more of a squared off grip to it. We'll see how it goes. I'm not 100% sure one way or the other. I may end up buying grips for this gun. I highly doubt it, because I'm cheap and I'm retired and I like making things. I may end up having 100 of these by the time I'm done. But I think they turned out relatively well. So I'm going to do some finishing, a little bit more finishing sanding, using, this is a red Scotch-Brite. I have red, I've got gray, and I've got white. I've also got some really high grit sandpaper, 600, 800, 1,000. I did not do that on these. These are the walnut grips that I made start with. This was the first set of grips I made for this pistol. Goes like that, which I also think look very nice. I'm very happy with them. Happy with the way they turned out. But I kind of like these too. So you never know. Maybe I'll swap the ones on my other pistol out. So I'm going to finish these. Now these I applied what's called Danish, over-reduced Danish oil to these, the walnut grips. And I just did that the other day. They're a little tight. I did that just the other day, and actually just by me touching them, they're getting dust on them. The Danish oil, linseed oil, which is the traditional gunstock finish, takes days, sometimes weeks to dry thoroughly enough to start rubbing them. This will be part of my project for the rest of the day, is to rub these some more to get a little bit more sheen to them. I eventually would like these to be relatively shiny. The same with these. I'd like these to shine up. So I'm going to get back at it. I'm going to sand it a little bit more, get them nice and smooth and almost to a polished state before I apply the finish. Here's the finished product. This is my Colt government model, chambered in 10mm. I mistakenly said chambered in 10mm Delta Elite. That is not correct. The pistol is a 10mm Delta Elite. The chambering is 10mm automatic. The grips are zebra wood. I didn't know what it was at first, but I figured that out. It came out pretty nice. I like it. They're a little wider than the original grips. I originally made a set in black walnut, which they turned out okay. At the end of the day, when I put the screws in, the screws on this side sat too proud of the grip for my liking. And then when I got the new screws from Brunel's, these are Allen head screws. They just sat differently than the factory ones. I couldn't get them to pull in properly. This piece of wood is just too thin. Damn. Oh well. I could, I guess in theory, remove the bushings from this pistol and put low profile bushings in. The big problem with that is this pistol came from the factory with staked bushings. I'd have to destroy the bushings to get them out, and I don't want to do that. It's just not, that just wasn't worth it to me. I'd rather just make another set, and I'll make another set in black walnut. I haven't received my Delta Elite medallion yet, so therefore the set I was going to make in ebony, this is ebony, I can't make them yet because I don't have those. There's a couple things I did to this pistol that I corrected some errors, some operational or functional errors with this gun. Originally, when I got it, this safety wasn't working properly. What was happening was it was wore out. So if you pulled the trigger and then dropped the safety, the hammer would fall, which would then fire the pistol, which is dangerous. And the grip safety from the original owner, this is still a little sticky because I have to machine it both sides a little tiny bit, and put some oil in it. I haven't oiled this yet. I think if I just maybe put a little lapping compound in there, or just file the inside of the frame just a tiny little bit. This is a Wilson Combat drop-in beaver tail. I originally had ordered an Ed Brown. This is Ed Brown safety. I had originally ordered an Ed Brown beaver tail. That would have required a considerable amount of machining to the re-radiusing of the back of the pistol frame, and I really didn't want to do that on this gun. I want to shoot this gun. I just didn't want to do that. I'm going to build another 1911, and I'll put that on there. Another thing I did was I replaced the original factory magazine release with an Ed Brown extended mag release. It sticks out a little bit further. The original factory one was cracked internally. This gun's pretty old. This gun was built in 1992, and I bought it from a friend who shot it a lot, so that doesn't surprise me, and nothing that has gone with this project has surprised me in the least bit. I bought this pistol knowing that I was going to have to do a lot of work to it. In reality, I actually haven't had to do a lot of work to it. It has a Barstow barrel, a tight barrel bushing. I mean, this thing's crazy tight. I can't wait to shoot it. It's got adjustable sights. But all in all, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. The original grips that were on it they just weren't to my liking. I showed that earlier in the video, and so now that everything's all done, I'm very happy. The other thing I'm real happy about is, even though I've repaired and replaced the grip safety, which required the grip safety and the thumb safety, I didn't have to get into the sear or the disconnect to make them function properly. So this gun had a butter grip safety works now. Butter trigger. It was great. It just let right go. There was no notchiness to it at all. It just was really nice and smooth. So I didn't have to get into that. Well, all in all, I think it turned out to be a pretty decent project, and that's about it. Thanks for watching. If you had the patience to watch it all the way through, I get a little boring and long-winded. Can't wait to shoot it.